Before we begin, I want to ask you something simple but meaningful. As you listen to this message, take a moment to comment below and tell us where in the world you're watching from. It's a beautiful way for us to see how far this message of faith and unity can reach from every nation, every heart. When the white smoke rose above the Sistine Chapel, the world held its breath. A new era had begun. But few could predict the kind of leader the Church was about to receive. His name, Pope Leo XIV. With a quiet strength and an almost mystical presence, Pope Leo XIV stepped onto the balcony, not with thunderous proclamations, but with a warm, disarming smile. To some, he seemed unfamiliar. To others, revolutionary. And to nearly everyone watching, he seemed different. We expected tradition. We got transformation wrapped in humility. He's not a break from the past, he's a bridge. And that's what makes him powerful. The man behind the mitre. Before he was Pope Leo XIV, he was simply Father Benedictus Loria. Born in a modest village, he wasn't raised with papal ambitions. He was known not for commanding crowds, but for sitting with the forgotten. He once spent 3 years in a war-torn region, not to document suffering but to share in it. He was often found in refugee camps, barefoot among the displaced, speaking softly with victims of violence, listening more than preaching. His leadership style, even then, was rooted in presence, not power. The silent radical. The Vatican has seen charismatic reformers, philosophical theologians, and diplomatic strategists. But Pope Leo XIV's approach? It's what experts are now calling the silent radical. His reforms are subtle, but seismic. He doesn't bang the drum. He doesn't demand change. He embodies it. His first official papal directive wasn't about doctrine, it was about listening. He mandated that bishops across the world hold local listening forums, where ordinary lay people, not clergy, could speak freely about what the Church meant to them. Leadership by listening. Clip: a fictional bishop speaking at a local listening forum in Uganda. Bishop, fictionalized. For the first time, we didn't come with answers. We came with ears. That was Leo's instruction. Pope Leo's style of leadership doesn't begin with papal bulls or grand speeches. It begins with questions. What are you feeling? What have we missed? Where have we failed you? He believes the voice of God can be heard in the voice of the people. Challenging the Vatican status quo. Most popes reside in the Apostolic Palace. Pope Leo chose a guest house, saying, "I cannot lead the flock if I'm too far from their scent." He wakes early, often making his own breakfast, and is known for walking without security detail among pilgrims. This is not performative simplicity. It's intentional leadership. He leads by example, not edict. And while tradition demands the grandeur of the office, Leo's humble conduct sends a clear message. Power in the Church must be exercised with the heart of a servant, not the hands of a ruler. Redefining authority in the Church. In a pivotal moment, Pope Leo convened a synod, not to declare doctrine, but to delegate it. He opened discussions to more laity, more women, more voices typically excluded from Vatican decision-making. I was invited not as a token, but as a partner. That's leadership. That's Pope Leo. Under Leo's leadership, authority doesn't flow only from Rome, it radiates outward, inviting collaboration across continents and communities. Facing criticism with grace. Not everyone has embraced Pope Leo's style. Traditionalists worry he's compromising sacred customs. Progressives fear he's not moving fast enough. But Leo meets criticism not with defensiveness, but with compassion. To critics he says, "If your conscience burns with a love for Christ, then we are already allies, even if we disagree." This emotional intelligence, this refusal to escalate, is what distinguishes Leo from many leaders. He does not dominate discourse. He diffuses it. A pope who washes feet, literally. He doesn't pick the perfect. He picks the overlooked. And in that gesture, the bending, the washing, the honoring, he preaches a gospel more powerful than any homily. His critics say he's too inclusive. Leo replies, "Christ washed Judas's feet too." Conclusion of page 1. As the first year of Pope Leo XIV's papacy unfolds, the world is beginning to understand this is no ordinary pope. He's not just leading a church. He's reimagining what leadership means. In silence, in simplicity, in service. But we've only scratched the surface. The Catholic Church is one of the oldest institutions in the world. With centuries of rituals, doctrines, and decisions etched in history, the very idea of change feels impossible. But Pope Leo XIV doesn't see it that way. He doesn't believe the Church must choose between being ancient and being relevant. In his mind, it can be both. What drives him isn't just theology, it's vision. Not just for the Church, but for humanity. And that vision? It's more radical than anyone expected. The global Pope. Pope Leo's leadership transcends religion. He isn't content with issuing blessings from a distance. He steps into the world's most broken places, not to preach, but to participate. To him, leadership means showing up, especially where others won't. He has visited refugee camps, held forums in drought-stricken regions, and spoken directly to climate activists, tech innovators, and displaced families alike. Advocate. When Leo spoke at the summit, he didn't sound like a pope. He sounded like a brother. A leader who believes this planet is sacred ground we're all responsible for. A church for the marginalized. Under Leo's leadership, the church is widening its tent. He frequently repeats this line. If someone feels they've been pushed out of the church, then the shepherd must leave the 99 to find the one. This isn't just metaphorical. In his second month in office, he issued a declaration asking every parish worldwide to open its doors, literally, for one day a month, inviting those who feel abandoned by religion to speak, ask questions, and be heard. Woman. I left because I felt judged. I returned because I felt seen. Pope Leo understands that real leadership isn't about guarding a gate. It's about tearing down walls. A reformer with reverence. Still, Pope Leo is no enemy of tradition. In fact, he's deeply reverent of it. He continues to celebrate Mass in Latin. He prays the Rosary daily. But he believes tradition should be a lamp, not a leash. He once said, "Tradition should illuminate the path forward, not trap us in the shadows of the past." This balanced approach, honoring the old while welcoming the new, is what makes his leadership style resonate with both the faithful and the skeptical. Modernizing the papacy. One of the most surprising elements of Leo's leadership is his embrace of technology. He launched a Vatican mobile app, updated with his handwritten reflections, prayer challenges, and real-time Q&A with young Catholics worldwide. Teen. I never thought I'd say this, but the Pope replied to my question about doubt. That one message brought me back to faith. Pope Leo believes that to reach people, you must go where they are, on phones, in podcasts, on YouTube, in digital spaces the Church once ignored. His relationship with world leaders. Pope Leo doesn't see global leaders as rivals, or as royalty. He sees them as collaborators. And that has startled many. During a tense summit on religious extremism, he sat beside both a Muslim cleric and a Jewish rabbi, inviting them to co-sign a document against hate speech. When the cameras were off, he was seen embracing them both, whispering, "We serve the same Creator. Let us protect His children together." Analyst. Leo XIV is the rare leader who doesn't need to dominate the room to lead it. His presence alone redefines diplomacy. The power of vulnerability. In a world where leaders often project strength through power, Pope Leo reveals a different kind of strength, through vulnerability. In one interview, he openly spoke about his past fears, doubts, and even periods of feeling unworthy of his calling. He admitted, "There were years I feared I was too broken to serve. But perhaps God uses cracks to let the light through." This kind of openness is rare, not just in popes, but in any leader. And yet, it's precisely this vulnerability that has deepened trust among millions. His approach to internal reform. Internally, Pope Leo is quietly reshaping the Vatican structures. He's streamlined communication between departments, promoted younger bishops into leadership roles, and insisted on transparency in financial matters. For the first time, the Vatican now publishes an annual breakdown of charitable funds, papal travel costs, and donations. Leo wants people to know exactly how the Church stewards their faith and finances. Admin. It's not about scandal prevention, it's about moral clarity. Leo says if our hearts are clean, our books should be too. A leader of the people, not above them. Leadership, for Pope Leo, isn't about elevation, it's about incarnation. Just as Christ descended to dwell among humanity, Leo walks among the people with sincerity and joy. He once delayed a high-level meeting with ambassadors to attend the funeral of a street sweeper who cleaned Vatican grounds for 27 years. His reasoning? Diplomats can wait. But heaven won't miss the chance to welcome a faithful servant. That simple act said more about his priorities than any sermon could. In just a short time, Pope Leo XIV has redefined what papal leadership looks like. Through humility, vulnerability, global engagement, and tech-savvy reforms, he's made the ancient feel alive again. But perhaps the most surprising aspect of his leadership isn't just how he leads, but why he leads. Before every major decision, every bold address, and every global appearance, Pope Leo XIV does one thing first: he prays. For him, leadership isn't a performance, it's a calling. And that calling begins not in strategy meetings, but in silence. His leadership style may surprise the world, but for Leo, every choice is rooted in deep spiritual alignment. He once told a reporter, "Before I act as Pope, I must sit as a servant." That's where clarity comes from. Discernment as daily practice. Every morning, Pope Leo walks in the gardens behind St. Peter's Basilica, praying the Liturgy of the Hours. He keeps a small notebook where he records what he hears in prayer, phrases, images, names. These are not just spiritual musings. They are blueprints. Cardinal. Sometimes we would propose solutions to him. But he would say, "I need to take this to silence first." Then he'd come back with answers that felt divine. This practice of discernment before decision is the heart of Leo's leadership. He does not rush. He listens deeply, then acts boldly. His spiritual influences. Pope Leo is often described as a mystical strategist. He draws heavily from the writings of Christian mystics. He believes the Church's mission is both practical and prophetic, action rooted in encounter with God. He once quoted St. Teresa saying, "God walks among the pots and pans." For Leo, spirituality isn't removed from daily life. It is infused into it. This integration of the mystical and the managerial is rare. It's what makes his leadership so magnetic. Vision for a spiritually awake church. Pope Leo doesn't want a church that simply maintains. He wants a church that awakens. One that pulses with relevance, reverence, and revelation. He launched what he calls the Global Spiritual Renewal Plan, which includes monthly global prayer themes shared via social media, encouragement for parishes to include silent meditation after homilies, a worldwide Faith in Action challenge where youth document how they live out the gospel in modern life. He believes transformation starts from within and then moves outward. The hidden leadership of love. Many leaders project strength. Leo projects love. In a world hardened by ambition, his gentleness is revolutionary. He hugs when others shake hands. He weeps when others hold back. And he forgives when others condemn. Survivor. He didn't just apologize. He held me. He saw me. He made me feel like healing was possible. Leo's leadership teaches us something powerful. Love isn't weakness. It's the most courageous strength. Courage to say, "I don't know." One of the most surprising aspects of Leo's leadership is his comfort with uncertainty. In a press briefing on a controversial issue, a reporter asked for the Church's position. Leo paused and said, "We are still listening. We are still learning. Sometimes God's wisdom is revealed slowly. And it is not my role to pretend I know what He has not yet shown." That kind of honesty is rare. It's disarming. It's real. And it's deeply human. He's not building his legacy, he's building the Church's future. Most world leaders think about legacy. Leo doesn't. He thinks about seeds. He speaks often of the Church not in decades, but in centuries. His goal is not to be remembered, it's to prepare the Church for what it must become. He empowers younger voices, invests in underserved regions, and constantly reminds the Vatican. We plant today so they can harvest tomorrow. His leadership isn't about ego. It's about eternity. Calling the Church back to the margins. Pope Leo frequently quotes Jesus' words. Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. And he means it. He has asked cardinals to spend a week each year serving anonymously in shelters or slums. He's redirected millions from ornate renovations to medical aid and housing. To Leo, the Church's power lies not in its palaces, but in its people. Contemplative action. Leo believes in the rhythm of contemplation and action. His spiritual leadership is not abstract, it's catalytic. He encourages priests and lay people alike to blend silence with service. Asterisk. The deeper the well, he says, the more water there is to give. This balance is forming a new generation of spiritually grounded, socially active Catholics who see faith not as a retreat, but as a revolution of love. Pope Leo XIV's leadership style is not only surprising because of what he does, but because of what fuels him. In a world obsessed with control, he leads with surrender. In a church once defined by authority, he leads with empathy. And in a time marked by noise, he leads with silence. He's not just shaping the Church's future, he's awakening its soul. From the slums of Nairobi to the cathedrals of Paris, from underground churches in China to public masses in open fields, one man's leadership is echoing across the globe. That man is Pope Leo XIV. His leadership style is not confined to Vatican walls. It's alive in conversations between young believers, in reforms debated by bishops, and in the way ordinary people are returning to faith, not because they feel obligated, but because they feel seen. Reviving youth engagement. For years, the Church struggled to retain its younger generation. But under Leo's leadership, something has changed. Youth ministries have reported a surge in participation. Why? Because Leo speaks their language, both digitally and emotionally. He started the #AskCleo campaign, where youth submit spiritual questions and receive personal reflections from the Pope himself. The Vatican TikTok account now regularly features clips of Leo answering deep spiritual questions with humor, empathy, and honesty. Young woman. I thought faith was boring. But when the Pope said, holiness isn't about being perfect, it's about being real, I felt like he was talking to me. Interfaith healing. Pope Leo's leadership has also brought unprecedented healing between religions. He's convened councils with world faith leaders, not to debate theology, but to unite on shared values, compassion, peace, environmental stewardship, and human dignity. In one bold move, he co-authored a declaration against religious violence with multiple non-Christian leaders stating, "If your God leads you to hate, then it is not God you are following." Those words sparked global headlines, and even more global healing. Reforming church structures. Internally, Pope Leo has initiated a quiet but powerful transformation of church hierarchy. He established the Office for Lay Collaboration, giving women and lay experts voting power on theological panels for the first time in history. He also pushed for transparency in how bishops are selected, introducing a nomination process that involves local parish input. Layperson. For the first time, we feel like co-builders of the Church, not just spectators. Leo is decentralizing power, returning it to the people of God. Controversial moves that spark debate. Of course, this style of leadership hasn't come without criticism. Some claim Pope Leo is moving too fast, too far. Others argue he's not changing enough. He's faced backlash for washing the feet of transgender individuals, for giving communion to divorced Catholics, and for his open remarks about the Church's past mistakes. But he doesn't retreat from controversy. He walks straight into it, with humility and unwavering focus. Asterisk. If truth divides, he once said, let it also illuminate. The Pope who lives what he preaches. What sets Pope Leo XIV apart is not just his ideas, but his consistency. He lives what he preaches. There is no contradiction between his words and his walk. When a flood displaced hundreds near the Vatican, Leo was seen handing out water bottles and blankets, without cameras or press. When a disgruntled bishop publicly accused him of heresy, Leo sent a private letter, not a rebuke, ending with, "May we both continue seeking the face of Christ." A legacy already in motion. Across continents, Pope Leo's leadership is already leaving footprints. In South America, priests now co-lead parish missions with women theologians. In Africa, parishes are implementing ecological farming practices based on Leo's encyclical on creation. In Asia, interfaith prayer centers have opened, inspired by his message of unity. This isn't just reform. It's rebirth. Stories of impact. Meet Maria, a 14-year-old in the Philippines. She was about to leave the church, until she heard Pope Leo's voice in a podcast saying, "You are never too young to carry light." Now she leads a prayer group in her village. Or Father Javier in Spain, who struggled with depression. Leo's transparency about his own emotional health gave him the courage to seek help and stay in ministry. Or Ruth in Kenya, who started an interfaith women's shelter after watching Leo bless a mosque and a church on the same day. These stories aren't exceptions. They are the new norm. A church that looks more like Jesus. In the end, Pope Leo XIV's leadership is surprising because it doesn't resemble politics. It resembles Jesus. He welcomes the sinner. He heals the broken. He challenges the powerful. He prays in solitude. He forgives. He leads with love. He's not just guiding the church, he's becoming the church in action. Final reflections. So, what kind of leader is Pope Leo XIV? He's not a politician. He's not a performer. He's not a preservationist. He's a prophetic servant. A humble reformer. A spiritual disruptor. He leads with his knees bent in prayer, his hands open in service, and his heart set on something higher than approval, truth. And that is what's truly surprising. To lead is to love without agenda, to serve without applause, and to walk where Christ walked, especially when it's uncomfortable. Pope Leo XIV.